Officer Jake Rollins strutted through the dimly lit streets of Atlanta like he owned them. 4 years, he'd worn his badge like a crown, but it wasn't justice that fueled him, it was power. And deep down, a twisted belief that people like him were meant to be in charge. That's why, when he saw a sleek black Mercedes parked outside a quiet cafe with a black woman in the driver's seat, his gut reaction wasn't curiosity, it was suspicion. Expired tags, he muttered to himself. He hadn't even run the plates yet. He just knew. With a flick of his lights and a heavy tap on the roof, he approached the window. The woman inside, dressed in a crisp black suit, calmly lowered her sunglasses. "License and registration," he snapped. She arched a brow but complied, handing over her ID. As he glanced at it, the name Special Agent Jordan Matthews glared back at him. He snorted. "Special Agent, huh? Cute. Where'd you print this out?" Jordan remained cool. She'd seen men like him before, officers who mistook their biases for instincts. "Run it," she said simply. But Rollins wasn't interested in facts. He saw a black woman in an expensive car, carrying herself with authority, and it made his blood boil. "Step out of the vehicle." Jordan let out a slow breath. "Officer, I haven't broken any laws. If you run my ID." "No." His hand hovered over his holster. Jordan had no choice. She unbuckled her seatbelt, her FBI badge visible on her hip. Yet, Rollins didn't care. The moment she stepped out, he twisted her arm and shoved her onto the hood. "You think that badge makes you special?" he sneered, slapping cuffs onto her wrists. "Doesn't matter if you're FBI, CIA, or the Queen of England. You fit the profile." Jordan clenched her jaw, but she didn't resist. She knew the game too well. Fighting back would only give him an excuse. It wasn't until they got to the precinct that his world began to crack. The moment he logged her credentials into the system, the screen flashed red. "Federal Agent. High priority clearance. Do not detain." Rollins blinked. His chest tightened. A voice behind him made him freeze. "Officer Rollins." He turned to see Captain Douglas, his superior, standing with 3 stone-faced FBI agents. Jordan was now free of cuffs, rubbing her wrists. Her glare burned through him like fire. Rollins opened his mouth to protest, but Douglas cut him off. "Special Agent Matthews was working undercover on a high-profile human trafficking case," he growled. "And you," he jabbed a finger at Rollins' chest, "just compromised her entire operation." Rollins paled. I didn't." "Didn't what?" Jordan's voice was cold. "Didn't assume I was anything more than a criminal because of my skin?" You could have cost lives tonight." Silence. Then, the worst thing possible happened. The agents pulled up security footage of Jordan's mission, the one Rollins had interrupted. A young girl, barely 16, had been moments away from being rescued. But Rollins, in his arrogance, had blown the entire sting. The traffickers were gone. The girl was lost. His stomach dropped. Douglas shook his head. "Effective immediately, you're suspended." "But..." "And under investigation." As Rollins stood there, humiliated, Jordan leaned in close. "You thought you were punishing me," she said. "But in the end, you punished yourself." Rollins swallowed. For the first time in his career, he realized something. He wasn't the hero. He was the villain. And karma had just collected its debt. Karma's Badge, Part 2. Officer Jake Rollins sat in his tiny apartment, staring at the unopened letter from Internal Affairs. His suspension was official, his reputation shattered. But the worst part? He couldn't shake the image of Special Agent Jordan Matthews' face, the controlled fury, the disappointment in her eyes. And the missing girl. That haunted him the most. The girl Jordan had been trying to save was still out there, lost in the shadows of human trafficking because of him. For the first time in his career, he realized that his badge hadn't made him a good man. It had just given him power he'd abused. But maybe he could still do something right. The decision. Rollins knew he had no official authority anymore. His fellow officers wouldn't return his calls. The department wanted nothing to do with him. But he wasn't looking for redemption in their eyes. He wanted it from her. Jordan. After hours of digging, He found out she was staying at an FBI field office downtown. He drove there, hands sweaty against the steering wheel. The moment he walked into the lobby, a young black woman at the desk stiffened. "I'm here to see Special Agent Matthews," he said. She eyed him suspiciously, clearly recognizing his name from the scandal. "Agent Matthews doesn't take walk-ins." "Tell her it's about the girl," Rollins said quickly. The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. Minutes later, Jordan stepped into the hallway. Her sharp brown eyes locked onto him like daggers. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up here." "I know," Rollins admitted. Jordan folded her arms. "You ruin an operation, get yourself suspended, and now what? You want me to forgive you?" "No," he swallowed. "I want to help find her." An unlikely partnership. Jordan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And why would I trust you?" Rollins hesitated. "Because I know these streets. I know how traffickers move, where they hide. And because I hate knowing that she's still out there because of me." Jordan studied him, skeptical. She had every right to be. Finally, she exhaled. "You step out of line once, and I'll personally make sure you never wear a badge again." Deal. Hunting the ghosts. Rollins and Jordan spent the next 48 hours combing through everything: security footage, gang reports, informant tips. It was a long shot, but then Rollins had a gut feeling. He remembered something from that night. One of the traffickers had a tattoo. A serpent wrapped around a dagger. It belonged to a small but dangerous crew known as the Black Vultures, a gang operating under the radar in abandoned warehouses along the docks. "There's a spot they use near East Point," Rollins told her. "I can get us in." Jordan eyed him. "You better be right." The rescue. At midnight, they rolled up to the docks, parking a block away. Jordan called in backup, but they had to move fast. Through his binoculars, Rollins spotted two men standing guard outside a rusted warehouse. The same tattoo on one of their arms. "She's in there," he whispered. Jordan nodded. They moved like shadows, staying low, sneaking past the guards. Inside, dim lights flickered over crates and mattresses. Then, soft crying. Jordan's face hardened. "That's her." Rollins' heart pounded. They had to be smart. Jordan silently signaled, "I take left. You take right." He nodded. Then, boom. The warehouse door burst open as FBI agents stormed in. The traffickers scattered, shots fired into the air. Rollins tackled one of the men, slamming him to the ground. Jordan was already cutting through the ropes that held the girl, whispering, "You're safe now. We've got you." The girl, barely a teenager, clung to Jordan, sobbing. It was over. Comma's final lesson. Back at the FBI office, Rollins stood in the hallway, watching as the girl was reunited with her parents. Jordan walked up beside him. "She's alive because of you," she admitted. Rollins let out a slow breath. "No. She's alive because you didn't give up." Jordan studied him for a long moment. Then, she did something unexpected. She held out her hand. Rollins took it. "No badge can fix who you are inside," Jordan said. "But maybe, just maybe, you're starting to get it." For the first time in his life, Rollins didn't feel like a cop. He felt like a man trying to be better.